Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Black Like Me. First, let me say thank you, Dr. G, for allowing me the privilege of hosting your show, and specifically this episode featuring myself and the Honorable Judge Nicholas McNamara. My name is Aaron Hicks, and this episode means a lot to me. I spent most of my life in the system, everything from group homes to foster homes, detention centers, Ethan Allen School for Boys, Mendota Mental Health Institution, jail, and even prison. Currently, I am not on any supervision. What a blessing. Been on supervision since 1989. However, I do wear a GPS tracker on my ankle for life without ever seeing a judge or jury. Since I have returned to the community, I went back to school. My first semester, I scored a 3.5 grade average and made the dean's list after being incarcerated for over 12 years. I was named one of Wisconsin's 44 most influential black leaders in 2016 by Black Chambers of Commerce. I currently sit on the board of an organization called Just Mindfulness. I've been working at Nehemiah for the last 7 to 8 years, running a group called Man Up that was started by Dr. G. Currently also work with an organization called the Focus Interruption Coalition. Hey, before I forget, we got a treat for you. On September the 10th and the 11th, which is a Thursday and Friday, we have a reentry conference, and we're going to have some great speakers as well as some great breakout sessions. I look forward to everyone listening to go register to the nehemiah.org. Again, that's NEHEMIAH.org. Enjoy the episode. Black like me, black to reality.
Hey, good people. Grits or cream of wheat? Who the hell is racist? Does anyone ever ask if they touch your hair? Whew.
Black like me.
You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Black like me.
Hey, good people. I want to welcome you back to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. And listen, I want you to know that although COVID-19 has so many of us safe and at home, rightfully so for those of us who can be, but technology is such that I can still interview people for the podcast. And in some ways, it's even easier to get to them. So I've got some exciting guests today. We have an exciting show today. My guest is Mr. Aaron Hicks. He's a colleague of mine, a friend. We share the same birthday, about 10 years apart. And he's one of my staff members, one of the professionals on our team who serves the folks in our reentry programs. This man specializes in a support group that I actually started about 10 years ago. He was a participant. He is now a facilitator extraordinaire. He's helping men with housing, job training, job placement, and he facilitates this biweekly support program. And just a great guy, has his own tremendous story of just overcoming so many obstacles. With him is Judge Nick McNamara. He is a Dane County Circuit Judge here in Madison. He's been serving for about 11 years. He started in 2009. He's in branch 5. His undergraduate degree at the University of Iowa and law school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Gentlemen, welcome to Black Like Me.
Hi, Reverend G.
Hey,
How you doing? Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Listen, Aaron and Judge, I usually open up with some black icebreakers, and stuff is just kind of tough right now, so we need to laugh. So if you all don't mind, I just want to ask you a couple of questions, if that's all right. You ready to go, Judge?
I can take it, I think.
Okay, you ready to go?
Come on with it.
Okay.
Come on with it.
Okay, come on with it. So I'll just ask the first one that I ask each. I ask all the guests: grits or cream of wheat? Aaron?
I definitely got to go with grits all day, every day.
Really? Butter and sugar?
Promise you, just like that. Maybe not no more sugar. I'm going with honey now.
You go with honey now. I got you. And Judge McNamara, grits or cream of wheat? Sir?
I grew up in Iowa, and there were no such thing as grits there. So
With all that corn?
yeah,
With all that corn, what a waste.
the corn, and the corn in Iowa is for pigs and cows, so people don't eat it there. So
Yeah.
it's cream of wheat, I guess.
Oh my goodness! All right, gentlemen, growing up, did you ever get syllable spankings? Aaron, you ever get a syllable spanking? You know what a syllable spanking is?
Absolutely.
First, tell me what. So you have definitely had them. Tell me what a syllable spanking is. Well, first of all, Judge, have you ever had a syllable spanking?
Not that I know of.
Wait, Aaron, we need to swear the judge in because the judge might be holding back on us. Aaron, what's a syllable spanking? We used to call them syllable whoopings.
So the syllable whooping, it's when your mom is talking to you, Ashley whooping. Did not tell you to sit down somewhere.
Didn't I? And so they talk with you. Oh, that's funny. So you still say no to that, Judge?
No. Yes, that did not happen.
oh man, I'm loving this. Okay, now this question just came up recently. Did you or anyone in your family, have you ever witnessed anyone putting bleach in the sink to do dishes? Mr. Hicks?
Absolutely, I have.
Have you personally ever washed dishes in forks with bleach?
I might have. If how I recollect, I think so. I'm pretty sure I have.
And that was pre-COVID-19. So we're not even talking about COVID-19.
Right.
We're just talking about. Judge, how about you growing up in Iowa? Did you ever use Clorox bleach in your dishwasher or your dishwater?
No, that we did not do that. That just never happened.
Man,
Iowa ain't no fun. Iowa ain't no fun, man.
Oh my goodness. Let me see. Oh man. Let's see. Aaron, have you ever witnessed someone using a straightening comb?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't had it used right on my own head.
Oh my! So you've had your hair pressed, as they used to call it back in the day.
Yeah, the hot comb.
The hot comb. Judge McNamara, you ever witnessed someone using a hot comb? Or ever had one used on you?
Not on me, but I think every morning I see my wife using something like that. She's kind of straightened. I don't know.
Okay.
That's right. Those flat irons and blow dry.
Yeah,
I got you. Okay, I just got a couple more, man. I'm loving these. Now, this might have actually happened in Iowa. Some of our white guests can attest to this. Judge, did your family or relatives have homes where they put plastic on furniture in certain special rooms in the home?
Yeah. There's plastic on some furniture. Yeah, I've seen that. We've had that. My wife's family's done that. Some old farm families. Some farmhouses. There's just too much dust. They keep They put the plastic on and keep it there.
No, I like that. And Aaron, I know you've seen that, Aaron?
Yeah, on multiple occasions.
Oh man. Okay, let me just see. Let me see if there's anything else. No, you know what, man? That's fun. That's fun. Well, no, one more. Aaron, if somebody in your family says, "Ooh," no, let me ask Judge this first. If someone in your family wakes up and they come to breakfast or a meal and say, "I dreamed about fish last night," does your family have a general interpretation of what dreaming about fish means?
No, God, never. I've never heard. This is really kind of strange.
Aaron, in your family, your household, if someone says, "Ooh, Aaron, we dreamed about fish last night," what does that mean in Black families?
You got me on that one. But if I was to speculate, I would say you probably went to bed.
No, that's a good one. Old folks would say if you dream about fish, somebody's pregnant. So like if you remember some of the old soul food movie, Big Mama came downstairs and she said, "I dreamed about fish last night." And all the ladies started looking at each other like, "Mama, that ain't me. No. I'm not. I'm on the pill, no." In a lot of Black family, older folks, grandmas and stuff, Yeah, if you dreamed about fish, they believed it religiously that somebody was pregnant. Something was going to happen. Oh man, thank y'all for doing that. And this time where stuff is just kind of wild, we love doing that. The other part I do it is what we find is like the question about the bleach or the syllable spankings. That whether my guests are from the East Coast, the West Coast, South, they're from Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee. There's this commonality of cultural things. We might call things different names to do things differently. But it's just so interesting that culture is so pervasive. And one of the quotes from Professor Christy Clark-Pujara, she works in the African American History Department here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She just reminds us that a defeated people don't have culture. And the fact that we have music and culture and food shows that we were never defeated because of slavery and Jim Crow. So I love laughing at those things because we don't even realize that they're the norms until someone asks us, And so those things are just kind of fun. Hey, Aaron Hicks, you ever use cocoa butter?
I use it right now.
I remember asking Tyler that one time. He said, "Is that a food? Like, do you put it on bread?" And but it's funny. Black people use it religiously. Nick, do you use cocoa butter? I don't mean cocoa butter lotion, but like the yellow stick that you kind of push up like a push up. You ever use cocoa butter?
No. No, for hair or skin?
Aaron, what do you use your cocoa butter on?
I might use it for chopsticks, any like prior cuts or on your body or something like that to
it
get
takes
the
scars off. Stretch marks when women have had babies. It's just It's funny. One of the stories I tell is I live in Fitchburg, which is a little suburb of Madison. I want to get some cocoa butter. And I went in. They didn't even know what I was talking about. They thought it was lotion. They're like, cocoa butter. I think it's in this aisle, and it's like this cream. I go to the Walgreens on Park Street, which is in the community. Cocoa butter in a stick, 3 for $2. They don't have it at the Walgreens right here on Fish Hatchery, but you just go 3 miles north to South Madison, and they got 3 for $2, and you put on your elbow. I mean, it's like magic. It will take scars away. So anyway, I like laughing at those things, at those commonalities. Listen, folks, these gentlemen and I've gotten to know Aaron over the years, but I've gotten to know Judge McNamara probably over the past 2 years. Our daughters went to high school together and participated in sports, and so we know each other in passing that way. But all 3 of us, with several others, serve on what's called a criminal justice team. We call it the criminal justice table. It's an effort that's led by Justified Anger, which is an initiative of my nonprofit, which is called Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership Development. And what I found out is that in criminal justice system circles, places, you don't always have representation of the whole criminal justice system sitting at the table together, processing the good and the bad, the usefulness and the not so useful aspects of the criminal justice system. And so my team decided to call together a group of folks that consisted of police officers, our district attorney, our state's public defender, a judge, reentry professionals, nonprofit professionals. Who am I forgetting? Aaron, who else is on the team? Dane, our sheriff. So we have 2 elected officials here, our sheriff and our DA. And for 2 years, we've been meeting. We've had a couple of meetings in my home. We meet in my office. We meet in our church. And we build a rapport so we can begin to build some trust between ourselves, so we can bring the resources and the reputation of our organizations to bear on criminal justice issues. As you may or may not know, Wisconsin, it just ranks amongst the worst in so many categories: economic disparity between blacks and whites, home ownership between blacks and white, high school graduation between blacks and whites, literacy levels. When it comes to mass incarceration, we're only like 5% of the state's population, and we're a large portion of the state's incarcerated population. So we've been working to build trust so that we can begin to change that. I've gotten to know these gentlemen in that regard. And so we sit around tables and we talk and we process, and we don't just, come together to create a white paper or a committee or something. We really want to figure out, how do we work together in order to make change in our community? And that comes out of a place of trust. One of the themes of our organization is that when we build trust with each other, we think we can then do good work together. And but as we were talking, let me just back up and just say, Judge, is that a good description of what the committee is and why it is you were invited to come in as a Dane County Circuit Judge? Does that sound like what you were invited to participate in?
Yeah, exactly. And all of that. And it really did start with building trust and relationships, kind of understanding backgrounds and perspectives, and also building in trust insofar as an agreement that's reinforced frequently that what we're doing is a kind of, at this point, kind of confidential in a way that
Right.
with we're going to do some public work, but what's said and experimented with in terms of ideas and concepts and disagreements and debates, that's kind of happening to some extent in a mutual respect for, I won't say confidentiality because that's overstating it,
Sure.
but some degree of
Sure.
respect for the process of privacy.
Definitely. And Aaron, to you, does that sound like a good description of why we pulled that group together?
Absolutely. I think to echo some of the things you guys said, but I think also it was about bringing different worlds together and how can we effectively make change in our community? How can we actually work together, build together, and make a difference in our community? So based on everything you guys said and adding that to it, I think totally that hits it right on the head.
Sure. And this idea came up, I think, Aaron, you and Jerome and I were part of a panel. I remember I was moderating years ago, and I think it was a sheriff that said, you've got to keep in mind we're part of a system. Maybe it was correction. There was someone from the Department of Corrections who said, you all act as if we go around and pick people up and take them straight to prison. They are arrested, they are arraigned, they appear before court, the DA is involved. It's a process before they get to us. So we can't address this issue in a vacuum. And that's when the lights went on for me. I said, we've got to bring everyone from the police through the Department of Corrections to talk about this process, because we can't bring about a change unless everyone's at the table. And for that to happen by a Black-led entity and organization is key. It's so important and unique. And to make it even more unique and sweet, we've got 3 people sitting around that table that I know of who have done prison time. So it's not just elected officials with your DA and your sheriff and a judge and nonprofit execs. You've got people with real lived experience. And I remember at one of our early meetings, Aaron, you said when we mentioned the system is broken, it's not working, you said, wait, hold up. It's doing exactly what it's been designed to do. And it brings this level of realness to it. But I think it was in our first meeting where, Aaron, I think you said something that made me realize you and Judge McNamara knew each other before this committee. And I found out that you all even have a personal relationship. Now, in people's minds, we don't even think that judges have a life outside the court. You're sort of like school teachers. Like if we were to see you in the grocery store, we think, oh, Judge McNamara, what are you doing out here? We thought you lived at the courthouse. But that you all know each other and know each other well and have a friendship, it changed what I thought about judges and folks who have done prison time. But then you're serving as equal partners on this committee where we're making decisions and changes. We're talking to the staff of the governor online. We're talking to the staff of the Secretary of Corrections. Tell me a little bit about how you all became friends, because I want to talk about that aspect and how it humanizes the situation, both for formerly incarcerated folks, but also for judges. Aaron, can you tell me, because I think you're the one who maybe initiated the relationship or the partnership years ago. Will you tell me what happened that caused you to reach out to Judge McNamara? To Nick. In our meetings, we call him Nick, but I'm wanting to honor him also. But when you reached out to Nick.
Yeah. So based on just how you set that up and laid it out, it was kind of like that. It's rare that you are able to build a relationship with judges, or that's not something common that I've seen throughout my lifetime.
Nor have I.
And so because I wanted to see really more, I wanted to learn the judge from a different capacity, not so much in the courtroom where I've met many judges throughout my life, but it was, I really wanted to build and wanted to see a judge outside of that capacity, and hope with hopes of getting a greater understanding of the community in which is commonly coming through his courtroom to give a different perspective of the why piece. So that's really what I desire to get out of the relationship that Nick and I have now. And I think it gave him a perspective, probably from a whole nother lens, that probably wouldn't have saw had he not taken me up on, us reaching out, us meeting up, having conversation, his family meeting my family. I'm having a chance to meet his wife and kids and vice versa.
Man, I mean, like y'all, I mean, you talking about like there are many people that work together, and we might, Bob and I might be friends, but I may not know Bob's wife's first name. Like, so your spouses, your wives know each other. Your family members have gotten to know each other. I mean, you all have interacted. You had a meal together. You laughed and talked together.
Absolutely. We ate steak together at his house. It was actually really good cook. He's a pretty good cook on the grill too.
Wow, is he really? Now I forgot to stand when the judge came in. Let me just stand for just a moment. Judge, what say ye? What say ye, Judge? Is the statement that this man just made? Is it true? Is it verifiable, Judge?
Oh yeah, that's all true. But if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of give a little bit more of the history,
sure,
which is
please.
It was 5 years ago. We've known each other 5 years now, Aaron and I.
That's correct.
And the Moses group in Madison, part of the Wisdom group statewide, had invited me to speak to one of their meetings, and it was at Fountain of Life. It was 5 years ago in the spring of 2015. I was a little late because I had taken a verdict that night from a jury, and they took longer than I expected to deliberate, and I made it out there, which meant there was actually kind of a large crowd, larger than I expected. I don't know, Aaron, what would you say, 50 people, maybe more?
Yeah, bare minimum, at least 50 though.
Yeah. And I started talking, and there was, they just let me sort of talk about whatever I wanted. I gave some personal background of kind of my life experiences, a few of them, and how I came to eventually Wisconsin, and then how I became a judge. Talked a lot about some of general concepts about being a judge, some of the challenges, particularly things about sentencing, and then opened it up for questions. And, I don't think that we'd set an actual time limit. And again, I was a little late. I, in my own mind, thought maybe an hour and 15 minutes. But I think at the end of it, I was there for almost 3 hours. And I did say a few things that I remember the crowd, I could just see, hear it, feel it, kind of a visceral kind of negative reaction to some of the things I said. They were like, no, why are you saying that? And so I felt it. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to hang in there. And there were, it was a racially diverse group. And I remember this one, I think of him still as a young black man, asked me kind of a couple of hard questions, and I did my best, but I felt fairly challenged, as I did pretty much the whole evening. And then towards the end of the evening, that same person who ended up being Aaron said, so Judge, you tell me you're from Iowa. You told me you grew up, your high school, there were 2 black kids in your high school, 1 girl, 1 boy, which is true. That's what I had shared, and that's just a fact. That's how it was. He said, you're doing a job, but you're telling me that, over 50% of the people that come through your courtroom are black. He said, do you know any black people? Do you have a black friend? I had this sort of moment where I'm on stage in front of a group of people. I'd been challenged, and I'd been honest as best I could. And it was not a time to lie. It was not a time.
It's called perjury, sir.
Yeah, right. That's right. And I just went, no.
I'm sorry, no.
And the question was friend. I mean, of course, I've worked with black people in different settings. I'm not, but that's not what he meant. I knew this. And I said, no. And he just said, would you like one? Would you like a black friend? And I said, yeah, I would. And we exchanged numbers. And I think the next week we started having breakfasts.
Correct.
And the first breakfast was, again, about another 3 hours. And then we've been doing all kinds of great things since then. But it was Aaron who understood I needed this, and I wanted it. And he's every time I'm with him, I learn something new.
You know what?
And not about just black people. I mean, not like your black questions or your whatever you
Black
call that.
icebreakers.
Black icebreakers. Although some of those, I met at his barbershop. We met at his barbershop once, and that was a good experience.
Did you get a haircut?
No.
Next time, Aaron, next time the judge needs to be faded up at a black barbershop. Because next time he comes on, my black icebreaker question will be, have you ever gotten faded up at a black barbershop? And I need judge to say on a stack of clippers, yes. Aaron, I love the honesty of that question, because basically what you did, Aaron, is what needs to happen. If I could read between the lines, you are offering a baseline, Aaron. Because what happens in a place like Wisconsin, where black people are 6% of the population, that's because Milwaukee and Madison and maybe Kenosha and Racine. You move away from there, you go north of the Dells, it's almost all, white and Native American. But you have people making decisions on black lives, about black people, and the only thing they know about black people is that they are part of their clientele. They don't know what the baseline is, what normal is, what black people do every day. So it's easy to think that black people are only criminal, only delinquent, et cetera, et cetera. So what's part of your thought was you're saying like, okay, so half the people you see are black, but yet you don't know anybody that's black. Weren't you thinking that might affect the way you judge? I mean, is that what you were thinking, Aaron?
Well, I was thinking that definitely was one of the things I was thinking, but there was a multitude of things that I was thinking, just because, I'm listening to the story that he's presenting, and he's coming from Iowa. So I'm knowing, like, if we're 6%, they're probably like 2%.
Right. Or negative percent.
But ultimately, I knew that his experience was very different from my experience. And so what I wanted to accomplish was the exchange of different worlds, to allow him to see through the lens of my world, and I wanted to get a glimpse of what it's like in his world. And so I figured if we can get the best of both worlds, maybe we can do something that'll be life-changing. And so I really appreciate the fact that Nick was even open enough to accept the invitation, and also that, I really honor and respect our relationship.
I can tell that when I see you two interact.
It was just, now we just, we get together, we just silly and I don't know, whatever we on, but it was just, it's just really a beautiful thing. I just want to give you some snapshots real briefly, if I may. Sure. So I had some very trying times during the time I was on probation and parole.
Okay.
And I'm sharing this because the objective was, so I had just to make a short story short, not too long, I had a guy, basically he was extorting me. I had, like I know, and for the people that's listening, I've been on the bracelet since 2010. And that in itself has been very trying.
And that means your whereabouts are tracked. You're on a GPS system, so folks know exactly where you are at all times. That's right. So being on that was already hard. And then I had basically a guy extorting me, basically telling me I went to jail for a few days or whatever. I got back out of jail, and he basically told me if I wanted my job back, I had to give him $150 every 2 weeks. And if I didn't, then I wouldn't keep my job. And at the time, I still was working at Nehemiah as well. But what wound up happening, I started to share it with Nick, to let him get a glimpse of what it's like for an individual being on probation or being on parole, and how people will know that you're on that and use that against you, right? Sometimes it turns into a weapon. And I remember Nick saying, "Do you want me to do something about it?" And I told him no. I didn't want him to do anything. I just wanted him to be able to get a glimpse of what it's like to walk in my shoes every day, and how individuals can take and use being on probation or parole as a weapon, as a means to be able to say, well, he said this or he did this or whatever the case may be, and how simple it is for an individual to get locked up based on an allegation. You don't have to do anything wrong. It's the allegation.
Just the allegation alone.
And Aaron, for you, part of just being able to be reunited with your family was stipulated upon finding meaningful employment.
That's
so
right.
For you, it wasn't just so that you could buy a bus pass or a Happy Meal. If you didn't have gainful employment, your agent could tell you that you couldn't see your wife and your daughter, or you couldn't live with them.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And the person you're dealing with extorting you, they know that. They knew that a simple call could have you locked up like that.
That's right. That's right. And so living like that, but I think what lifted me up more than anything, the fact that I just knew he got a chance to see. Right. That's all that really mattered to me. It wasn't, I didn't need justice. I mean, I done been through a lot of stuff, so I can take it, but it was just the fact that he got a glimpse to be able to see what it's like for individuals who are on probation and parole. And I believe it changed the whole trajectory of how he looked at giving people probation and parole. And you can comment to that, Nick, yourself, but that's really what I wanted him to get out of that whole thing, just to be able to see it's not as simple, and how the community, and that once people know, they abuse that.
Right, because and Nick's going to jump in just a moment, but what you offered, Aaron, was a valuable lesson, because he had built trust. He knew your family. He knew that you were committed to not being in trouble. You're on this ankle bracelet. You're paying. How much are you paying a month to have surveillance put on you?
They make me pay $240 a month for the rest of my life.
For the rest of your life, and that wasn't even set by a judge, or wasn't set by the department. Well, yeah, the corrections that wasn't even set through a real legal process. But he could trust that when you said that this extortionist was coming after you, he could believe that it's true.
Hey everybody, this is Tyler, the podcast manager of Black Like Me. Just wanted to jump on and share 2 quick things about Black Like Me. Number 1, Patreon. Patreon is an opportunity for you, if you like our show at all, if you enjoy it, if you want us to keep creating this content, to be able to support us financially and to help us do that. If you're as little as $2 a month, you can join our team. We also have some other higher tiers with some more benefits if you join. So please go to patreon.com/blacklikeme to hear more. Number 2 is that if you are interested in having Dr. G speak, if you're interested in him doing some consulting for you, your organization, anything like that, you can go to alexg.com/contact, and you can fill out a form to be able to see how you might be able to bring Dr. G to your business or your community. All right, back to the show.
Nick, what were you thinking when that happened? When Aaron said this to you, what you wanted to do something, but he didn't want you to do anything? How did you process that? And what were you thinking during that exchange?
Well, kind of contrary to what I think your assumption you made, Alex, this was actually our first breakfast together when Aaron told me this. And
okay.
But it'd been, hours into our conversation, I think. We had breakfast, we walked for a while, we went down to it was Yara River. Remember that, Aaron? There on the east side, down the little river, we talked.
That's correct. Yep. I really remember.
Yeah. And I think after a couple hours of him sharing a lot of life stories and just talking basically just about personal things, I think I don't, looking back now, it almost seemed like a little test from Aaron to build trust.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I remember him saying, I'm about to tell you something, but I don't want you doing that. I mean, even before, he's right that I did say, Aaron, I want to do something. Would you let me? I can make some phone calls. And he's like, no, I told you I don't want. No, I just want you to understand this. Just listen to what I'm saying. But that was our very first meeting a breakfast together. And he said, you just need to think about how vulnerable I am. And it was shocking. It was actually, I didn't do anything at all, although that was actually the first thing I told my wife when I got home was, you won't believe what this guy has to deal with. Listen to this.
I remember.
And it was still hard. I mean, the next time I said, is that still going on? And he's like, yeah, it is. And he's like, no, don't do anything. And I never did, although it crushed me inside to know that was happening to him. I've learned a lot of different things from Aaron. I want to talk about some of them, but one of the things we're hitting here right now that I've learned from Aaron is how vulnerable people are who are in the system, in front of a judge, in prison, how vulnerable, and then on paper back in the community. And I saw that with Aaron, not just with this example, but other times. I mean, while he was still on a long period of supervision,
Yeah.
any time that might have been revoked, he would have lost all of those years. And I knew that conceptually. I mean, intellectually, I'm saying, as a judge. But I didn't really feel it in the way I did for Aaron. That any time over the years that I had met him, if he was revoked before he finished that time, he's going back in. He's got to start all of that supervision time all over again, and it was scary for me. I felt his vulnerability, and there was one time he had gone over to Milwaukee for a Bucks game, and we've actually shared some of that together. But this was a time I wasn't able to go, and there was a question about kind of, what did he come right back from the Milwaukee Bucks game or not? Because they knew from GPS, and I got a text from Aaron, says, I need to talk to you or something, and he called, and his voice was all different. It was different than I had heard Aaron. It's the only time I've ever heard this voice from him. And he's like, Nick, I'm going to go back to jail. In fact, I think this is going to be real bad. So if you don't hear from me for a while, I just want you to know. And he said, I'm preparing myself emotionally for what I have to do to get back in jail and what's going to happen to me here. So I just want you to know. And not only was he vulnerable at that point, but he was scared. He was kind of angry because it was unfair. And it was a pretty scary 48 hours. But you remember that, Aaron? I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Nick,
I remember in a situation like that, there was no crime that was involved. A person would be revoked because of a rule violation. So if you're supposed to be in by 10 or 11, you're not supposed to buy a cell phone. You shouldn't get a loan. You can't get married. You can't have a new relationship. That these rule violations can cause people to be revoked. And so I want people who are listening, Nick and Aaron, we have lots of people that are listening all over the world who don't necessarily understand how criminal justice works in our state. So people think that if someone's on paper, it's because they are a danger or a threat to society, and they don't really understand how this works. And so you mentioned, Nick, that at any point, Aaron, I think your supervision was it 7 years in the community?
That's correct.
And if at any point, if there's a significant rule violation, you can go back to prison, lose all that good time that you have. And Nick, I want to ask you, is that the way it plays out in every state? Or is Wisconsin somewhat unique in what people can lose if they are revoked and go back to prison? And again, I'm just speaking, we can talk about new crimes all day long, but I'm speaking just rule violation, not just new crimes, but violating rules. Is Wisconsin somewhat unique in how people lose all their good time if that happens?
I'm sorry, I really don't have a full answer on that. I know each state is different. And in fact, Wisconsin has changed over the years in terms of how revocations happen. There was a time where judges were involved in some revocation decisions, and now judges aren't. People are on supervision in the community, either on probation or after serving time in prison, they're on extended supervision, the old parole, and people sentenced before 2000 would be on parole, but since 2000, after what's called truth in sentencing, there's a period of time that's part of the actual sentence that is community time. But so after a revocation, which now happens only on the decision of the Department of Corrections after going through an administrative law judge if it's challenged, for the extended supervision, they're not incarcerated, even though they're on very, very strict rules and restrictions, and some people with shockingly strict rules. They're not considered incarcerated, and so they'd have to start that period of time over. But the real hardship, I think, from what I've known from Aaron and what he went through at different times, even before I met him, he had just been through, because the bracelet they gave him wasn't ever working, and he would get called in.
I remember that
just because they thought he wasn't charging his battery.
That's right,
and he was. And so they would say, okay, you got to go in right now. And if he didn't show up right then, he was going to get arrested. People would come to work, they'd come to house, they'd find him. And it was those kinds of 3 days here, 5 days there. And there's a lot of people who lose their jobs, lose their housing,
Of course.
lose all those, lose their social support. Thankfully, Aaron had people like you, Alex, and others that were not going to forget him when he would have to go in and out. But that's the kind of the power of those orders from the Department of Corrections. And from their point of view, they receive an allegation, they receive some sort of complaint. Sometimes it comes from the police, sometimes it comes from an anonymous phone call. Sometimes it just is a hunch, probably. But unlike a judge who has to have due process before any decisions can be made and a chance for both sides to be heard, the department just says, Mr. Hicks or Aaron, go in right now. You got 2 hours to get yourself to jail.
That's
I mean, your life, Aaron. I'm sorry, I shouldn't tell your story there.
No, that's okay.
Well, it's important to know that you know it and that he's conveyed that and that you've watched that. Judge, has your friendship with you've been on the bench for 11 years. You've known Aaron for 5. Do you think brand new judges coming to the bench would rule differently, more sympathetically, more knowledgeably if they had cross-cultural relationships like the one you have with Aaron?
Yes, I think for sure. It changed the way I've approached my cases and sentencing decisions in a lot of different ways. But the most significant one is the concept of time, not a concept, but the reality of time, that how long time is, because
time served. You mean time being served?
Time in
prison,
custody, mm-hmm. and on supervision on paper. I mean, here Aaron had over 7 years of still staying on supervision. He'd already done years when I met him, and he still had many, many years to go. And the length of that time, I could just feel. I mean, when he first told me how long he was going to be on paper and under supervision, it seemed like forever in the future. And then all of these vulnerable moments that happened, and just the length of time. And I've paid closer attention to some of the research about when people do something that really triggers a full-on revocation. That it's over. It's like 81% of the people do that within less than 24 months. So as a judge, I don't need to be saying, I'm going to put you on probation for 10 years. That's just ridiculous. It's just It's a waste of resources. It basically sets up a young person or an older person even for failure, and it's just so unnecessary. I mean, and judges throw out years. 3 years prison, 5 years, 7, 8, 12. We just throw it out like it's just like here, have another piece of gum. Just one more here. Here's another. And I just don't think about it. It's easy for a judge to say 3 years of custody, 3 years in prison, and 7 years of supervision. I mean, but I don't. Why 7 years? Just because then I can say it's 10 years. And so it's that time that actually has affected me a lot.
Wow. So Aaron, let me ask you this, because I don't know if I can ask Judge McNamara this. It may not be a fair question, but in light of what he just said, Aaron, do you believe justice is blind?
No, I don't. I don't believe it's blinded in any way, shape, or form.
It's shaped by something. Perception is shaped by something.
It definitely is, but it's definitely not. It's not. I mean, they see exactly what's going on. It's very strategic. It's very intentional. How our system has been created and how it is, and so I will always stand on that. But specifically to Nick though, the fact that he was able to get a glimpse of those things going on in my life, like, I tilt my hat off to that, because again, he was open enough to just be able to walk with me through my life and be able to see from a whole nother lens what it's like for an individual being on supervision.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that we establish, like, though there was some very trying times, there were some very amazing times. I remember Nick coming to Man Up, actually, and
that's the weekly support group you facilitate.
That's correct. And it was I believe in that. Despite all of what was going on in my life, I was still I never allowed the men in the group to come up with a woe is me moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we would always establish, a lot of times some of the men would use words like, I made a mistake. And I would always challenge that, because the challenge would be, what is the difference between a mistake and a bad choice? Because I believe, and a lot of times I base things based on my understanding of scripture. And just moving to that, the man said, it was the woman that you gave me. So I believe that it's in men's DNA to come up with ways not to accept responsibility. And the objective is for them to accept responsibility. We made bad choices. You made a choice. These are things that you did. It was not unconscious. It wasn't a oops. So it was him being a part of that, being able to see that despite all of what I was going through, I still challenged myself and I still challenged the men
to be responsible.
That's right.
Judge McNamara, would you recommend for other judges? Because believe me, this will be shared with judges. Folks are listening to this and they know people, who are, administrative judges, municipal judges. Would you encourage other judges to build relationships similar to what you and Aaron have built?
Absolutely. In fact, Aaron and I have talked about it, and I've had a hard time following through to try to set up some sort of way to help other judges meet people like Aaron and people in the community, other leaders, people who have been formerly incarcerated, to develop this. And we can do it. And some changes have happened at the courthouse that might allow me to kind of get that done.
Sure.
But even if they don't do that, judges should be going, or should be invited and accept that invitation to groups like Aaron's Man Up group. So the best part of knowing Aaron has just been the kind of the quiet personal times that he and I get to share, almost usually over a meal. But we've gone to sports things. My son was on the Badger football team for a while, and Aaron and his sons came to a couple of games, and I've met his family, and he's met my twin brother and my mother-in-law. We did a presentation at the law school together a couple of times.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, and then he comes to court, and we often will talk in my office afterwards. But going to his Man Up groups, even if I didn't know Aaron, just going to those, I've learned so much, and I go to him. I try to do it on a little regular basis, partly because he gives me stuff to say to people in court. And so, like his statement about mistakes, I've thrown that back at people exactly like he says. I have a defendant who's they get a moment of allocution before I impose a sentence, and a lot of men will say, "Yeah, I really made some. I made some mistakes, and I want to, and I'm like, yeah, okay, my friend Aaron Hicks, he talks about that, and it could be a mistake, but it's not like tripping over a shoelace. This is a choice, a set of choices, and I give that right back to him. And then the other one, though, that Aaron says that I like most of all is when he says to the men in the group that no change means no change. This is what you got. If you don't change, this is it. And right, Aaron, that's one of your things. And I say that to people too, and I try to give credit to Aaron and Anthony Cooper and other people that work with Aaron for the success of that group.
Wow.
We just had we done had some really amazing experiences, man. And I mean, again, I really appreciate our relationship. I mean, it's just been huge. I mean, it's been amazing. I think it's been life changing for both of us. And I wouldn't change it for nothing in the world.
Man, that's fantastic. Listen,
I'm sorry, Bob, but I don't want you to conclude yet because there's more I wanted to say about
sure.
what
Sure, please.
I've learned. So it's part of my background and experience was that as I do this job, even before I met Aaron, I believed in the goodness of people. I believe that people are good, and some good people sometimes make bad decisions, bad choices, and sometimes people get hurt. But they're good people who have made bad choices. And I understood that. Knowing Aaron has helped me not just sort of understand that or understand that theoretically, but to actually know it and know him and know his goodness, such that when other people, kind of label Aaron or people who have had Aaron's experiences a certain way, that it hurts because, they don't label him as good always. Aaron had an unpleasant sort of experience because, speaking at the university and someone was upset given some of his background and some of the things that he's done and threw out some labels, and there was I'm reading about it in the paper, and I knew right away who it was. It was Aaron they were talking about. And it hurt me to know that, and I know it hurt Aaron, but he's actually accepted that. But I do think, again, judges and anybody, Department of Corrections people, police, prosecutors, defense lawyers who sometimes don't know their own clients, need to know the goodness.
Right. That's really good. That's a really good point, Judge. That they don't know that, they don't take the time to know. And you've done that. What I keep hearing Aaron say, that he appreciates the fact that you've done that. And it's not because you've spoken into his cases, but you've spoken into his life, into his humanity, to his manhood. And you made it very clear, Judge, that he's done the same thing to you that is very reciprocal. And what you all have done is really at the core of what Nehemiah and its Justified Anger Initiative believes, that we repair this through relationships, that we've gotten where we've gotten through broken and breached relationships. And by reaching out to each other and building bridges, it's really, really important. So I think last year, Judge, we had 4 Dane County judges go through our U.S. Black History course. It's a 9-week process. And the purpose is to awaken them to the kinds of realities that Aaron lives in. And I've never been incarcerated, but I've got very real lived experience. I talked about my doctor being pulled over by the police, that being educated and having a home and living in a suburb doesn't change any of that when you're driving a car at night and you're Black and you're male. We're trying to help to build those relationships. In fact, one of the people who went through that class was just elected to the state Supreme Court, Jill Karofsky. I think you were just celebrating with her recently. She just agreed to come on the show to talk about the role of the history class has had on understanding these kinds of things that we're talking about. And so what we're also modeling is that you all aren't unique. The opportunity you took might have been unique, but you're not unique. There are judges who need these kinds of relationships, and there are folks who appear before judges who need these kinds of relationships. And you can easily read something in a book, or Aaron, you could watch old Perry Mason, or different kinds of TV shows to understand judges. But the fact that you all have entered into that relationship and that rapport for the sake of opening your worldview is how change happens. It doesn't just change because of rules being changed or legislation. People change things by coming into contact with each other and building new relationships and new truth. So I appreciate your story. Aaron, I appreciate the fact that you reached out, that you asked those questions. I've been asked those questions. I've been in meetings with you. I know that you can be dogmatic when you want to know something. So I appreciate that boldness, but also I love the fact, Aaron, that you bring something to the table. I mean, to hear Judge McNamara say that he quotes things that you have said, before giving out sentencing, it's just showing how far and wide this report goes. And I want people to listen to it because it's going to cause them to think differently. So folks who are part of the Black Like Me listening family, judges, DAs, defense attorneys, people who are connected in criminal justice systems, share this podcast. because we want to humanize individuals, judges and formerly incarcerated people.
That's right.
They both get a bad rep, and then it
That's
just
right.
makes the system not work. And they're not waiting for someone outside to change the system. Right inside it, in the courtroom, from one meal to another, they are doing things to make this a fairer and more equitable system for people.
And the other part of what I've learned from Aaron, one last point, but it was one of the first things he shared with me, as I mentioned, about the vulnerability of his current situation. But by knowing Aaron, I've learned the real trauma that he's been through as a child, as a little child, as a adolescent, as a young man, and as the vulnerability continued, the trauma that he still has to experience by being on a bracelet, and judges and other professionals in this system are learning about things like trauma-informed care, but it's very, very theoretical. It's a whole nother thing to, be sharing a meal, to be eating pancakes and scrambled eggs with a friend who shares a story of he's just telling me a story of his life. And I can't believe what I'm hearing in terms of what he had to live through and survive. And then to know that he's been through that, he's been in prison, he's been through so much, and yet he's still this good person is overwhelming. And every judge, every person, my family, I want my children to know Aaron and know those facts about him. So
that's
Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
That's powerful. That's for Aaron. You got a gift, man. And and again, I am so proud that Aaron's a part of our team. I met Aaron when he was a participant, just fresh out of prison, in this group I started called Man Up, and now he's on my staff, and it is his job to facilitate, and people get to experience that day in and day out. So I appreciate you gentlemen being so transparent with your story. We've unfortunately just run out of time, but I've been wanting to talk with you two for well over a year. And so my guest has been Aaron Hicks, who's one of our reentry professionals on my team at Nehemiah, and Judge Nicholas McNamara, who is the Dane County Circuit Judge here in Dane County in Wisconsin. And these gentlemen are just talking about how they've helped to humanize each other by befriending each other, bringing their families together, not just tokenizing their relationship, but really getting a chance to know each other. Aaron did not approach Nick in order to manipulate him to speak into his cases or speak up for him, but just so that Nick can be a better judge. And that has happened at Judge McNamara's own admission. And Aaron, for you to be affirmed by knowing that even though you've been inside the system for much of your life, that you are still influencing a system that had, incriminated you. So I'm proud to know you. I'm proud to know you both. And I think that your work is just tremendous. And I want more judges. I want more people to understand what it is that you're doing and to help your story to get out there. So listen, Black Like Me listening, family members, as always, subscribe if you've not done this. If this is your first time listening, subscribe. There's a link inside that you can click that can let you go to our Patreon page, support us so that we can continue to do this kind of programming. Share, repost, retweet this, because we need folks to understand that we can do better when we know better. And listen, you don't have to be a judge in order to get to know someone that's part of your world. You can be a school teacher, a professor, a doctor. Do you know anybody that's Black? You're treating Black patients, surgeons, researchers, police officers. Come on, do it. Because if you don't know people, your perception is being shaped by something that's not accurate. It is virtual. Is it television? Is it media? Is it your own perspectives? Is it jokes that you heard? Come on. If you don't have real life experience, you have fake experience that is having an impact on someone's life. My doctor needs Black friends because he would not have looked at me as a Black man and told me that I don't need a prostate exam. And so please make this world better. Don't wait for somebody to come and bring someone that's different to you. Reach out, find folks, judges, doctors, professionals. Black people exist. Black folks, judges, professors, doctors, researchers, they exist. All they can do is tell you no. Aaron asked, not knowing the outcome. 5 years later, they're talking about this. So listen, folks, each week I tell you to listen, lean in, learn, be transformed by what you've heard. Don't just let this be head knowledge. Be changed. Share this information. Reach out to someone who's different because of what you need. Not for them to be your Black tutor, your Latino tutor, your Asian, because you need to understand things through their worldview in order to make the world better, in order to bring you into that world in which you both live. But do it for yourself and not just for them. Have a great day. Thank you for being a part of Black Like Me. Thank you for listening all over the world. Now, more than 98 countries around the world have downloaded episodes and they've listened. And we want to continue to bring you great programs. So thank you so much, Black Like Me family. You go and have a great day.
Ooh, Black Like Me, yeah.
I want to thank Corey Saffold for creating the music for this podcast, my podcast manager, Tyler Nyland, engineer and editor, Eli Steenlich, my editor, Jeremy Holliday, and a special thank you to WORT Studios, where we record Black Like Me.
Ooh, Black Like Me.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. You can find out more about Dr. Alex G's amazing work at www.alexg.com. Black Like Me is sponsored by the generosity of the Human Family Unity Foundation.